What if something as simple as reheating your food could be harming your body without you even realizing it? Most people do this every day. You cook a meal, store the leftovers, and reheat it later. It feels normal, safe, convenient. But after the age of 60, your body doesn't respond the same way it used to. Your digestion slows down, your metabolism changes, and your body becomes more sensitive to certain chemical changes in food. Now here's the part most people don't know. Some foods, when reheated, don't just lose nutrients. They can change. Their structure can break down. New compounds can form. And in some cases, these changes may not be harmless. Now think about this. If a food looks the same, smells the same, and tastes the same, you assume it's safe. But your body doesn't judge food based on how it looks. It reacts to what's happening at a chemical level. And that's where the risk begins. Because certain foods, when reheated incorrectly, can become harder to digest, more irritating to your system, and in some cases, linked to long-term health risks. Now, this doesn't mean you should fear your food, but it does mean you should understand it. Because small daily habits, like how you store and reheat your meals, can have a bigger impact over time than you think. Now imagine this. You repeat the same habit every single day, something that feels harmless. But over months and years, it begins to affect your body slowly, and you never connect it to your routine. That's how hidden risks work. They don't appear suddenly, they build quietly. Now here's the good news. This is not complicated. There are specific foods that you simply need to be more careful with, and once you know them, you can avoid unnecessary risk. In this video, you'll discover 6 foods you should never reheat, especially after 60. You'll learn why reheating them can be a problem, what actually happens to these foods, and what you can do instead to keep your meals safer. Because sometimes, it's not what you eat, it's how you prepare it that makes all the difference. Now let's start by understanding something very important. Why reheating food after 60 is not always as simple as it seems. Because most people believe that as long as food looks fine, smells fine, and tastes fine, it is safe. And in many cases, that is true, but not always. Now here's where things begin to change. As your body ages, your ability to process certain foods changes. Your digestion slows down. Your metabolism becomes less efficient. Your body becomes more sensitive to what you eat and how you prepare it. Now think about this. When you eat freshly cooked food, your body handles it in a certain way. But when that same food is stored and then reheated later, it is not exactly the same anymore. Even if it looks the same, even if it smells the same, even if it tastes the same. Because what you don't see is what has changed at a deeper level. Now here's the key idea. Food is made up of proteins, fats, and other compounds. When you cook food the first time, these components change. That's normal. But when you cool that food, store it, and then heat it again, those components can change further, sometimes in ways your body does not handle well. Now here's something very important. Not all foods react the same way. Some foods remain relatively stable, but others can break down more easily. They can form compounds that are harder to digest, or compounds that may irritate your system. And over time, repeated exposure to these changes can affect your health. Now think about your daily routine. How often do you reheat food? Leftovers from dinner, meals prepared in advance, food stored in the refrigerator. It's a common habit, and for many people, it feels completely harmless. But after 60, small habits like this can have a bigger impact than expected. Now here's the part most people miss. The issue is not just reheating, it's how certain foods respond to reheating. Some foods become less stable, some lose important nutrients, and some, under specific conditions, can form substances that your body does not benefit from. Now this doesn't mean you should stop reheating food completely. That's not practical. But it does mean you should be more aware, because awareness allows you to make better choices. Now imagine this. You continue the same habits without understanding the impact. Day after day, month after month. And slowly, your body is exposed to small stresses you don't even notice. Now compare that to this. You understand which foods require more caution. You adjust your habits slightly. And over time, you reduce unnecessary risk. That's the difference. Now here's something important to understand. This is not about fear, it's about control. Because once you know, you can act. Now take a moment and ask yourself, do you pay attention to how your food is reheated? Or do you simply assume it's always safe? Because that assumption is where most people go wrong. Now here's the key takeaway from this part. Reheating food is not always harmful, but certain foods, when reheated, can change in ways that may not support your health, especially after 60. And those changes are not always visible. Now in the next part, we're going to talk about the first food, one of the most commonly reheated items that can become problematic when handled the wrong way. And once you understand why, you may start looking at your daily meals very differently. Now let's move to the first food, because this is one of the most commonly reheated items: rice. Most people cook rice, store it, and reheat it later. It's simple, convenient, and very common. But here's what many people don't realize. Rice can become unsafe if it is not handled properly after cooking. Now this is not about the rice itself. It's about what happens after it is cooked. Cooked rice can contain bacteria that are not destroyed during cooking, and when rice is left at room temperature, those bacteria can multiply. Now imagine this. You cook rice, you leave it out for a while, then you store it, and later you reheat it. Even if you heat it again, some of the harmful substances produced by bacteria may remain, and that's where the risk comes in. Now after 60, your digestive system is more sensitive, which means your body may not handle these changes as easily. You may experience discomfort, digestive issues, or other reactions. Now here's the key point. The issue is not just reheating rice. It's how long it is left out and how it is stored, because improper handling creates the problem. Now here's what you should do. After cooking rice, cool it quickly. Store it in the refrigerator as soon as possible. And when reheating, make sure it is heated thoroughly. Now let's move to the second food, chicken. Another very common food. Cooked chicken is often stored and reheated later. But here's what makes chicken different. Chicken is high in protein, and when protein is reheated, its structure can change. Now this doesn't always mean it becomes harmful, but it can become harder to digest, especially after 60, when your digestive system is not as strong. Now think about this. You eat freshly cooked chicken, your body processes it normally. But when that same chicken is reheated, especially multiple times, it may not be as easy for your body to handle. Now here's another important point. If chicken is not stored properly, it can also develop bacteria. And just like rice, reheating does not always remove all risks. Now imagine this. You cook chicken, you leave it out too long, you store it, then reheat it. That combination can increase the chance of problems. Now here's the key idea. The issue is not just the food itself. It's the process. Cooking, cooling, storing, reheating. Each step matters. Now after 60, your body becomes less forgiving, which means small mistakes can have a bigger impact. Now let's take a step back. So far, you've seen two important examples, rice and chicken. Both are common, both are widely used, but both require proper handling. Now here's something important to remember. This is not about avoiding these foods completely. It's about being aware, because awareness allows you to reduce risk without changing your entire lifestyle. Now imagine this. You make small adjustments. You store food properly. You reheat it correctly. And over time, you avoid unnecessary problems. Now compare that to ignoring these details and repeating the same habits without understanding the impact. That's where risk increases. Now here's the key takeaway from this part. Certain foods, like rice and chicken, can become problematic when reheated if they are not handled properly. Not because they are bad, but because of how they change and how your body responds to those changes. Now in the next part, we're going to look at more foods that may seem harmless but can become less suitable when reheated, especially after 60. And once you understand them, you'll be able to make smarter choices every day. Now let's continue, because the next foods may surprise you. They are common, used almost every day, but when reheated, they don't always behave the way you expect. Food 3, potatoes. Potatoes are one of the most widely used foods. They are simple, affordable, and part of many daily meals. Boiled, baked, cooked in different ways, and very often stored and reheated later. Now here's what most people don't realize. When cooked potatoes are left to cool and then stored improperly, they can become a problem. Not because potatoes are harmful, but because of what can happen after cooking. Now imagine this. You cook potatoes. You leave them out for some time. They are no longer hot, but they are not yet refrigerated. This is the stage where bacteria can begin to grow. Now this growth is not something you can see. You won't notice a smell. You won't see a visible change. Everything may look completely normal, but inside, changes are happening. Now when you reheat those potatoes later, you may think the heat makes them safe again, but that is not always the case, because some substances produced during that time can remain even after reheating. Now here's another important point. Potatoes also change in structure after cooling and reheating. Their starch becomes different. This process is natural, but for some people, especially after 60, this can make them harder to digest. Now think about this. Your digestive system is slower than before, so foods that require more effort to break down can create discomfort. You may feel heaviness, bloating, or a sense that the food is not sitting well, and you may not connect it to reheating. Now here's the key idea. The problem is not the potato itself, it's how it is handled after cooking. Now let's move to the next food. Food 4. Spinach. Spinach is often seen as a very healthy food, rich in nutrients, full of vitamins, good for your body, and that is true. But when it comes to reheating, there is something you need to understand. Spinach naturally contains compounds called nitrates. On their own, these are not harmful, but under certain conditions, they can change. Now imagine this. You cook spinach, you store it, and later, you reheat it. Then maybe you reheat it again. Each time, the structure changes slightly, and over time, it becomes less beneficial. Now this does not mean spinach becomes dangerous immediately, but repeated reheating and improper storage can reduce its nutritional value and may create compounds your body does not need. Now here's something very important. After 60, your body becomes more sensitive to these kinds of changes, which means what you could tolerate easily before may not feel the same now. You may notice subtle discomfort, nothing extreme, but something that feels slightly off. Now let's take a step back. So far, you've seen 4 foods: rice, chicken, potatoes, spinach, all common, all part of everyday meals, but each one requires attention. Now here's the pattern. The issue is not just reheating, it's how the food is handled, how long it stays outside, how quickly it is cooled, how often it is reheated. These small details matter. Now think about your own routine. Do you sometimes leave food out longer than you should? Do you reheat the same meal more than once? These habits may seem small, but over time, they can have an impact. Now here's the important point. This is not about fear, it's about awareness. Because once you understand what's happening, you can make better choices. Now imagine this. You cook your food, you store it properly, you reheat it only once. That simple approach reduces unnecessary risk. Now compare that to ignoring these steps and repeating the same habits without understanding the effect. That's where problems can begin. Now here's the key takeaway from this part. Foods like potatoes and spinach are not harmful on their own, but when reheated improperly, they can become less suitable, especially after 60, because your body is more sensitive than before, and small changes in your routine can make a big difference. In the next and final part, we're going to complete this list with the last 2 foods and simple rules you can follow every day to keep your meals safe and healthy. Because sometimes it's not about changing what you eat, it's about changing how you handle it. Now let's complete the list, because the final 2 foods are also very common and often misunderstood. Food 5, eggs. Eggs are a regular part of many diets. Simple, nutritious, easy to prepare, and very often people cook eggs, store them, and reheat them later. Now here's what you need to understand. Eggs are rich in protein, and when protein is exposed to repeated heat, its structure changes. Now this change is natural, but when eggs are reheated multiple times, they can become harder to digest, especially after 60. Now think about this. Your digestive system is slower than before, so when food becomes more difficult to process, your body feels the difference. You may experience discomfort, heaviness, or a feeling that the food is not sitting well. Now here's another important point. If eggs are not stored properly, they can also develop bacteria, and reheating does not always remove all risks. Now imagine this. You cook eggs, you leave them out for too long, you store them, and then reheat them later. That process can increase the chance of problems. Now here's the key idea. It's not about avoiding eggs, it's about how you handle them. Now let's move to the final food. Food 6, cooking oils. This is something many people don't think about. Oil is used in almost every meal, for frying, for cooking, for preparing food. Now here's the important part. When oil is heated, it changes. That's normal. But when the same oil is reheated again and again, those changes increase. Now imagine this. You use oil once, then you reuse it, then you heat it again. Each time, the oil breaks down further, and over time it can form compounds that your body does not need. Now here's why this matters. After 60, your body becomes more sensitive to these kinds of changes, which means repeatedly heated oil may not be handled as easily as before. Now this doesn't mean you should never use oil, but it does mean you should avoid reheating the same oil multiple times. Now let's take a step back and bring everything together. You've seen 6 foods: rice, chicken, potatoes, spinach, eggs, cooking oils, all common, all part of everyday meals, but each one requires proper handling. Now here's the pattern. The problem is not just reheating, it's how the food is: cooked, stored, reheated. These steps matter. Now think about your daily routine. Do you sometimes leave food out too long? Do you reheat meals more than once? Do you reuse cooking oil? These habits may feel small, but over time, they can affect your body. Now here's the key idea. This is not about fear. It's about awareness. Because once you understand these patterns, you can make better choices. Now imagine this. You cook your food. You store it properly. You reheat it only once. You avoid reusing oil. These are simple changes, but they can make a difference. Now compare that to ignoring these details and repeating the same habits without thinking. That's where problems can build over time. Now here's the final takeaway. After 60, your body becomes more sensitive, which means small habits matter more. Not just what you eat, but how you prepare it, how you store it, how you reheat it. Because sometimes the difference between safe and harmful is not the food itself, it's the way you handle it. Now take a moment and ask yourself, what small change can you make today? Because real improvement does not come from big changes. It comes from simple habits repeated daily. And when you stay aware, you give your body the support it needs. Because your health is built on what you do every day. And the best time to improve those habits is now.